Sausage. Hello, and welcome to the episode. Yeah, I mean, it is the episode about the game I'll be talking about, but this is, first, the show where I, Marcus Nez, gives you my first impressions on a game, while a random selection of gameplay from my personal stream of it plays in the background, unedited, uncut, raw, for your judgmental eyes. This here episode is all about INDUSTRIA, a first-person shooter that takes you from East Berlin into a parallel reality shortly before the end of the Cold War. You're on the search for a missing work colleague, and during your search, you're transported to a mysterious parallel dimension where a dark past reveals itself, including a second life you never knew your friend always had. I mean, as far as always being when they found the parallel dimension and whatnot. And this is not in the video game Second Life. That's not where you saw this Second Life. You didn't go into Second Life and you're like, oh my god, they're the fucking king of the dildos. Oh boy. Not that Second Life. Get your head out of there. Is that thing? I guess I could call it a game. I shouldn't call it a thing. There are a lot of things in it. But Second Life still going on? Who cares? I mean, comment if you want, and you can tell me if the Second Life is still there. I'm sure it's still full of dildos if it is. You're all alone, at first, at least, as you try and put the puzzle pieces back together and surely try and find a way back home as well. INDUSTRIA shows a lot of promise. The story immediately reminded me of BioShock Infinite especially, which you could say was both good and bad. Good because while I didn't love Infinite as much as the first BioShock is one of my favorite games of all time, and I did call it my number one for a very long time, so that's pretty hard to compete with, if I do say so myself. I still really like that game being Infinite, not INDUSTRIA, but maybe I do really like INDUSTRIA. You don't know just yet. You don't know. And bad because it allowed me to compare this much smaller scale game against one of the biggest of the last decade or so. Side note, how old is Infinite now? Is it over 10 years old now? Is it? Somehow it still feels like it came out only yesterday while also feeling so far away at the same time. Obviously, a game like Infinite will trounce a game like INDUSTRIA on all fronts. Rational Games probably had as many employees in their HR department as the studio who made INDUSTRIA has in their entire company. Probably more. And I would never actually compare the two, but even looking at INDUSTRIA on its own, it's incredibly rough around the edges, with spotty performance, a lot of light bleed, and some design choices that left me puzzled more than any puzzle in the game, which there aren't many of, since this is primarily an atmospheric shooter and occasional pickaxer. Actually, it's kind of a frequent pickaxer. You're going to be pulling out that pickaxe a lot with how little ammo you find at times in this freaking game. Jesus. But let's start with the good. The story and voice acting, the latter in particular, are quite good. One could even say surprisingly so. And that one would be me, because I was surprised by the voice acting. Especially the story, as mentioned briefly earlier, revolves around you trying to find out what happened to your work colleague. When you get to the office and during your short walk from small apartment to the office, your small apartment that is, I forgot to put that in the script. I just said it's from small apartment. What small apartment? Whose small apartment? Who knows? It could be yours, it could be anyone's. Oh, Mary, top of the morning to you. Things seem off, but you quickly discover that your colleague figured out what you've been working on all this time and managed to travel to a parallel world. Obviously, you follow your friend without knowing exactly where you'll end up or how things will work out, because why wouldn't you? And you end up transported to a lifeless city filled with robots, batteries, and barely a human life in sight. And that's the basic gist of it, which I'm surely fumbled up in one way or another, but it's a solid foundation for what could be an interesting story when all is said and done, even if it isn't the most original story. Though, how many stories are truly original these days? The story is greatly benefited by a good bit of world building and some of the best voice acting I've heard in a while, regardless of how many A's a game has or not. But as good as the story, characters, and world may be, none of it matters when the act of playing INDUSTRIA is often more of a chore than something I enjoyed. That's my way of making an enjoyed rhyme with chore. Shut up. The performance of Industria, playing it on an Xbox Series X, was the opposite of smooth, with an overall sluggish feel that made my 3 hours with the game more often frustrating than not. I don't know what FPS they're trying to hit, but it definitely fails to hit it most, if not all of the time, feeling like it's barely able to stay around even just the 30 frames per second mark. In addition to the performance issues, there's occasional popping and an excessive amount of light bleed. Then there's the game itself. While I like Industria on paper, it falls apart on screen thanks to bad gameplay and a smidgen of annoying design, and really just questionable design. Industria may be a shooter, but it sure doesn't feel like one, at least not a good one. Enemies are rather bullet spongy, and while there are two difficulties, normal and hardcore, normal adding autosaves, more ammo, and easier enemies, even playing on normal is often a frustrating experience thanks to finding little ammo, even though you apparently find way more than if playing on hardcore, though you'll find more batteries than you could ever hope to use. I don't understand why there are so many batteries in this world when you barely find yourself in a place so dark you actually have to use your flashlight. You know what would be more useful? Health potions, especially since ammo is so sparse, leading you to rely on your trusty pickaxe more than you'd probably like, and many robots have a surprisingly long reach while you have no way of blocking or dodging out of the way of said reach. The autosaving on normal is nice, but the game shows no rhyme or reason to when it autosaves, sometimes autosaving a few minutes since the last save, and sometimes over 20 minutes since the last save. You also have the ability to save at typewriters if you find one, but they're so rare you should never count on them. Also, when reloading an autosave in particular, it throws you back to basically the beginning of an area, and when I loaded an autosave, every time I went back to a manual save, because it was usually before my last manual save, and it felt like a lot of progress was lost, even if the time made it seem like it. I don't know. The autosaving seems really, really weird in the game. Ultimately, though, Industria feels like a game with some good ideas that needed more time to iron out not only the bugs and technical issues that plague it, but also to tweak a bit of the design so one isn't left wondering why this choice or that choice was made. Maybe with a few updates and what have you, the game will be a much better experience. It could be a much better experience on PC. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to my time with the game on Xbox Series X, and until it irons out some of the technical issues, adjust the game so that you find more ammo and health potions and fucking batteries everywhere. Holy shit. There are so many batteries in this game. It's like how many Starbucks are in the world. You know that Lewis Black joke where he was in a Starbucks and across the street was another Starbucks? That's like the batteries in Industria. You find a pack of batteries and you're like, I can't pick these up because my fucking light bulb flashlight, that's what they call it. My flashlight is all full up and I can't carry spare batteries because that's a choice to make. See, okay, if you want to have as many batteries in your fucking game, either one, make it so that I'm using that flashlight all the time and I'm gonna need them batteries, or two, let me carry spare ones. I can carry 3 health potions at a time. I don't know if there's a max amount of ammunition you can carry because you're gonna be using it and be out of it more often than having a surplus of it, but you can't carry excess batteries, yet they're fucking all over the place. What the fuck is it, Industria? Industria! Okay, anywho, that will do it for this here episode of First. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. You can find all my links of import over at pixelatedsausage.com/PXS. If you'd like to see me streaming games like Industria, you can do so over at Twitch. You can also see the archives of streams over on the PXS archive channel or in a playlist on this here channel of the Pixelated Sausage kind. And if you like any of this stuff I do and what have you can go over to patreon.com/PXS and support me and my nonsense that away. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye!
Hey, you still there? Tell me about Rosendahl. Where'd he come from?
Well, he arrived here just like you. One day he just appeared in the Institute, to all the scientists' surprise.
I can imagine.
He had so much knowledge. He was something like an angel.